Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Jamie, president of Ask. Steve, the vice president of Ask, is behind the camera, and we are going to answer all kinds of questions tonight about the Sabbath. Like, why don't we still celebrate it? So stay tuned for this great episode. Once again, we're on location, and this is where we answer questions that you ask, and we have some good ones. I lumped them together because I got some in the more recent weeks on the Sabbath, so we're going to do an all Sabbath episode. So hopefully this is helpful to you. Remember, you can ask your questions. You can send them in to cornerstonebv.org. You can go on our media page and drop down, you hit ask, and then you just submit a question, and then it comes right to my phone, and I can answer it on ask, okay? All right, so this one comes from Linda, and Linda actually really had a well thought out question, but for time's sake, let me just kind of summarize it. Basically, should Christians keep the Sabbath, and should it be Saturday? Because if you remember, a lot of times, especially those of you who grew up in church, think of the Sabbath as Sunday, the Lord's Day, which is what we call it. But Sabbath for the Jews was always Saturday, the seventh day of the week, where God rested and He commanded His people to rest. So the question is now, under the new covenant, do we still celebrate the Sabbath? And Colossians 2:16-17, which we had just very recently, last weekend. This is what the Apostle Paul said. Therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that are to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ. Okay. Similarly, Romans 14:5, Paul wrote, one man considers one day more sacred than another man considers every day alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. And so when they met as a council, and there was a lot of controversy, should we make Gentile or non-Jew Christians who became Christians, should we make them basically become Jewish first? And so get circumcised and a bunch of other things, right? And they had they basically said, no, we're not going to make them, follow the ceremonial rules and those kinds of things. And in the New Testament, all 9 of the 10 commandments all 9 of the 10, I should say, of the 10 commandments are repeated. The Sabbath one is the only one that isn't. And so Jesus sort of fulfills, He is our rest. And so we are not commanded to honor a Sabbath day being Saturday. Sabbath was also, just to keep in mind, Sabbath was meant as a day of rest. It was actually never commanded as a day of worship. The Jews used it as their time to gather and worship, right? So we kind of patterned that. Now the Lord's Day, because it's celebrated on Sunday for Christians, in acknowledging the resurrection being on Sunday. And so we kind of did the same thing. We gather and we worship, which is not a bad thing, but it was never commanded of God for them to gather and worship. He commands us to worship every day. The command of the Sabbath is simply to rest and not work on that seventh day for the Jews. And so that isn't a repeated command for us. However, it's a great concept that I think we should be very careful to follow. And so it doesn't have to be Saturday, it doesn't have to be Sunday, but it should be something that Christians regularly put into their rhythm of their life. And that just means time to rest, specifically to rest in God. Now, that doesn't mean you stay on your knees and pray all day. It just means you stop working, you stop the pace, and you rest. And so that could be for you. I know for me, resting on Saturday and Sunday is impossible because I am a pastor and we have 3 gatherings on Saturday and Sunday, and there's so much to do. So I have to find another day to try to do that, and it's very healthy for me to do that. So what do we learn? Yes, we should gather. Yes, we should worship. We should be worshiping every day. We can gather on any day. You can gather on Saturday. We can gather on Sunday. Any other day of the week. It's good to gather. And also that really you should Sabbath. You should rest. You should find that in the rhythm of your life. Okay, so this one kind of goes on, piggybacks on that, this question that came in. In the Jewish faith, they take their Sabbath very seriously. They rest, fellowship with each other, put away all distractions. They can go into each week rested. Why, as Christians, do we lose our Sabbath? And why don't our pastors and churches fight more for Sundays to be a day of rest and gathering in prayer? Where did our Sundays go, and how can we get them back? I like how you put that question. let me just say this. As far as a culture goes, our Sundays are gone and they're not coming back. And what I mean by that is it was a lot easier for pastors and churches to say, this is our day, the Lord's Day, because no shops were open, no sports were played, no activities happened, nothing, right? And so you said, hey, come to Sunday school, come to church in the morning, come back to church at night, celebrate with your family, rest. And that was a beautiful thing. And it also was very easy because there was no work to do. And so our culture in America and Western civilization kind of went with that pattern because we kind of came from a Judeo-Christian background. But that's gone. Nobody does that anymore. And there's actually, I feel like there's more distractions on Sunday than there are on Saturdays these days. So why do churches and pastors not fight for it? If you kind of look back to my answer to the first question, that it isn't absolutely necessary that you do that, you Sabbath on Sunday. I really don't think so. God doesn't really see that as essential. However, I do agree with you that pastors and churches should fight a little bit more about preaching and teaching the art of rest and Sabbath. I've preached on that before. I've tried to encourage people to do that, but I would definitely I would say that we could do that better. We could put that more into people, not like as something as a discipling someone in Christ. They should do that more and more often. And now a real quick one based on the Sabbath. It says, what is a Sabbath day's walk referenced in Acts chapter 1 verse 12? And just said, hey, they take a Sabbath day walk. And that's a really easy one. The rabbis had a tradition. This was not God's command, but basically they said to honor the Sabbath, you can't walk more than 2,000 cubits. Now, what's a cubit? Well, you can look it up, but I did it for you. This is about 3,000 feet. Every cubit is about 1.5 feet. And so this is about half a mile. You were only allowed to walk a half a mile on the Sabbath. If you went beyond that, according to the Pharisees, you were in sin. Of course, that wasn't actually true, but that was a tradition. So it became known to say a Sabbath walk would be about a half a mile long. All right, great question, Andy. Make sure you put your questions forward, cornerstonebv.org, media page, ask, you got it. We'll see you next week. Maybe we'll see you this weekend in church as we gather together on Saturday, the Sabbath, and Sunday, the Lord's Day. See you then.